Hi, I'm Alrick and welcome to the show. Today, Ethan and Antoine from Kingston College are on the show. They say the brave may fall, but never yield. And later, Kevin Knight from Camperdown will join us. Today, we're going to talk about bullying, pop culture, and dress codes in our schools. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
All right, so what's your name?
I am Ethan Pitter from Kingston College, the Student Council President and also the head photographer of the Multimedia Society.
Antoine Walken, I am the deputy head boy and co-captain for the track and field team for Kingston College.
So Ethan, earlier you were telling me that there are two types of people in the world.
Yes. Only two.
Only two?
Yes.
Can you explain that, sir?
Well, the two types of people in the world are those who attend or attended KC and those who would like to have attended Kingston College.
Okay, the wishing people,
yes.
like myself. Welcome to the Alrick Show. So, my brothers, what's happening in our schools now? What are your concerns, Ethan, as it relates to, let's start with the bullying in schools. What's that like? What's the atmosphere like now?
Well, honestly, the bullying in schools is one of my biggest issues currently. And I'm very interested in this topic as it was my internal assessment last year for communication studies.
Right, I knew that. Joke.
I actually focused on the impact that dancehall artists have on our younger adolescent minds. And I honestly feel like these entertainers do not understand the gravity that their music and their overall aura really affects our children of today.
What can we teach the youth, the students, so that it will help them not to go down that road to feel less than?
That's an amazing question. It's actually something myself and Antoine here are working on with the rest of the prefect body. We're actually working on a Big Brother program for Kingston College where I feel as if a lot of the times we have a troubled child and we say, okay, let's take him out of the school, okay, let's give him a detention, a suspension. But who actually sits down and talks to these boys? And that is what we would like to achieve.
Wow.
We found that corporal punishment is not always necessarily the best option. Sometimes it's as simple as a conversation. Pulling a guy aside and just saying, I see what you're doing, and you're not necessarily going down the right path. And that can actually get through further than any suspension or detention can, because instead of those students just sitting down mustering on the thought of what they've done, when sometimes they identify and say that what they did, there was nothing wrong with it. Sometimes it just takes that bigger person
to help them
to understand the gravity of what they've done.
Wow. Ethan, what have you been seeing in your school, for instance, and are you seeing a reception to this thought about having a Big Brother program and not to look at corporal punishment or any level of punishment before conversations?
Well, it's actually been an amazing turnout, and I can say there's a lot of positives so far. Actually, Antoine here was working very closely with one of our vice principals. We're starting back up our house systems, and he's actually been electing some of these used to be, or a long time delinquents who have now been reformed to be house captains. So not only are we taking them out and speaking to them and putting them back on the right track, we're also giving them an opportunity to put themselves out there as the potential leaders that we see and we know that they are.
What kind of pressure do you experience, in dealing with the students when it comes down to bullying? How does it manifest?
Well, to me, personally, there's no pressure because Kingston College is like one big family to me. I am very close. I can proudly say I'm very close with a lot of administration. We have Mr. Mary, our principal, we have Auntie Betty, we have Miss Morgan, our dean. I can probably say I am very close with all of them, and not only that, I believe that I am the closest student council president that has ever been intact or in touch with our head body. We're like one big happy family. We do everything together, and I don't think we're pressured as it relates to bullying because we walk over one by one by one, and we speak to every student. There's a lot of familiar faces, and the boys are really coming along, I can probably say that.
Right. What kind of atmosphere do you facilitate where the children can come, talk to administration? What's that facilitation like?
What happens with our head student body is that this year I must commend our head boy Niles Davis, who he's come up with a system where each of the lower school grades from 7 to 11 would basically get their own personal head boy. So from 7 to 11, a head boy or a deputy is appointed to a grade.
Interesting.
And
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, so it works, trust me, because I've been appointed to grade 10. So let's say I have a free session earlier on in the morning as a sixth former where I don't have class every session of the day. I'd take that hour, walk the block, and any guy you see just walking, loitering, you just pull them aside and talk to them, and sometimes that can be a conversation that really and truly changes the entire outlook of their day. And even with some students, it changes the entire way that they look at school because it engages in small conversation. They may say, so Anton, why is it that we can't wear certain haircuts? Why is it that they want us to have low trimmed hair, well kept hair? And I tell them, say, you have to understand that in the professional world, you're not always going to have a job where you have every single opportunity and every way to express yourself. And so, because I think that the showing of the hair is one way that people express themselves. And so I tell them all the time, high school is not the place to express yourself in that way. So there are many other ways. Join a club, the style of shoes you wear, because even Clarks, there are a certain amount of people who wear Clarks, there are certain people who don't. And it can be a way to express yourself as saying, yes, I'm one of the Clarks people. And so I tell them all the time, it's an open atmosphere. You can come and say whatever. We don't necessarily tell them, this is what you can come to me about, or there's a set amount of things that we're willing to talk about. It's always open conversation that we just speak.
All right, we take a break. When we come back, we're going to talk about the influence of pop culture on our youth.
The Alrick Show.
Welcome back to the show. We continue our conversation with Antoine and Ethan from Kingston College. Pop culture and its influence on our youth, right? Taking it into the school and acting out everything. We touched on it a little bit in our earlier segment, but let's delve a little bit more. How do you see it influencing the action of our youth, not just at KC, but across the island?
I see high school as the formative years of a young person's life. I mean, in these formative years, of course, you're going to have that social development. We're easily impressionable simply because you're trying to find your identity, right? And so in that identity crisis that you're going to go through first form to fifth form, and maybe even sixth form for those who choose that route, you're going to have years where you're going to be easily impressionable. So it's easier for easy access information like TikTok, Instagram, even what you see, even in a newspaper, even if you see something in a newspaper. And as Ethan said earlier, things that you hear in music, things that you hear on the radio, you're easily impressionable at that age. And so pop culture is going to have a great effect on all teenagers simply because they're looking for someone to identify with.
How do we get the parents involved from the earlier years?
Well, that's an excellent question. And I personally have a couple parents that I can probably say show up to our student council meetings every week. And we try to build a strong connection with them just so that the students can feel more at home, more comfortable, because their parents are there. They love that. And as Anton was saying earlier, I really wish we could go back to the 2010s Vibes Cartel when he was saying, pull up your pants, put it on your waist. Why does everything have to be about Molly and being dunce and all of that? I would love to see the dancehall entertainers look less on the monetary aspect and more of the message that they're putting out there to our young people. Because we hear it every day, whether we want to or not, on the buses, on the taxis, everywhere. So it would be lovely to see that.
I mean, a lot of our music sometimes talks about scamming. Yeah. Now the influence there. We saw in COVID-19 there's a lot of children never went back to school.
Yes.
What are your thoughts on that?
Personally, I have a lot of friends that did not come back to school, yes, but it wasn't necessarily because...
It wasn't scamming.
It wasn't scamming, I can say that proudly. It was more of a lot of lucrative business opportunities.
Yeah.
They got more interested in forex trading. They got more interested in just being self-employed, trying new things. And that's another lovely thing we have at Kingston College. Our entrepreneurship club is starting back up. Young Investors Club is starting back up. And my vice president, Matthew Jeffrey, is actually the president of both of those clubs. So Student Council really has branched off into a lot this year, and I can probably say myself and Mr. Murray have been speaking a lot, and he has appointed me as the head of all clubs. So I oversee all the clubs, and I basically report to him if any issues, they need anything monetary, if they need any old boy support. So something we're working on.
Would you say that how people view education is now changing? Ethan just said that the children, they never return to school because they saw business opportunities. Is it that, do you believe that we have a lot of children pursuing the higher levels of education because the opportunities are now and they can get on it?
I think that it's a bit murky because it really and truly depends on what your passion is and what your ambition is, right? So I want to be an architect, Ethan wants to be a doctor. So we go into school with the anticipation that you're going to do 5, maybe in his case 10 or more years of formative learning after high school. I mean, so for those persons who aren't necessarily sure, it's easy for you to just pounce on a business opportunity and say, oh yeah, you know, so the money turns over quick here and I can actually make a living off of this. And so I think that is not necessarily a different way of looking at education. I think it's that lack of ability or lack of willingness to make a firm decision as to what exactly you want to do that leaves the door open for any opportunity that presents itself.
Right. There's a recent incident with a young man stepping on another student's clerks. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I think it's one of those things that has always been a thing in Jamaica where everybody wants to be a bad man. Everybody wants to say, oh, he stepped on my clerks, you know, I'm going to hurt him or abuse him or something like that. And I think we as Jamaicans give this trend too much attention because the only way a trend can maintain and can continue
is the attention that we hear.
Attention. And even with the whole dunce bags and all of those stuff, I honestly feel like it's just a trend. We need to start paying so much attention to it and spend more attention on finding a new trend, a more positive trend.
Wow.
An educational trend.
Positive. What are some of the extracurricular activities that you're involved in?
I'm trying to get more involved in Key Club. I did a lot of work with the Interact Club last year. I was also the Sixth Form Association president last year. But you know, the thing is with track and field, it's a 24/7 job, so you don't necessarily have
24/7 job.
Yeah, it's a non-paying job as well and an ungrateful one. But you don't necessarily have opportunity to do much else. And I wouldn't say I'm a born athlete. I wouldn't say I'm the most talented athlete either. I believe that I'm a product of hard work. And so I am very grateful to track and field and very grateful to the opportunity that Casey has given me because it has taught me a different type of discipline that I didn't think I could really have, whether that's diet, that's training 6 days a week, sometimes even 7 if necessary.
Right. Antoine, Ethan rather, what do you want to say to students, youth looking on now about getting their act together, getting their mindset right and, you know, allowing themselves to be more positive?
Well, one of the biggest misconceptions is that high school is the end all be all, and really and truly I look at high school at the beginning. You're just a baby, you're just a toddler going into a big world. You have no idea what you're getting into. Because I personally had my first summer job. It was an amazing experience, but I did not have a clue what I was getting into. So I think they just need to take one step at a time and realize that this is the beginning, and they have their support, they have their family, they have their friends. Everybody wants them to do well. So just take it one step at a time.
Thank you so much. We take a break. When we come back, Kevin Knight from Camperdown will join us and Ethan will leave us for today. So we take a break.
The Alrick Show.
Welcome back to the show. Kevin Knight is here with us from Camperdown. At Camperdown, since Casey says the brave may fall but never yield, what Camperdown says?
Solum optima pitenda sunt, which is only the best is good enough.
Only the best is good enough. Kevin, what are your concerns as it relates to dress code in schools? It's a serious matter as to how a lot of schools make it out to be.
So I believe that school uniform shows a sense of order. Although students may want to express a sense of fashion, it's really important that within an educational system they maintain order, structure, uniform as the name suggests. So it not only represents the school itself, but showcases what the school does for students, brings out the best in them, the way you carry yourself.
Is that true for you as well?
I concur with everything he says. I think that it shows that unity, right? You talk about us saying that the brave may fall but never yield. And that is a mantra that from the first day that you put on the purple tie, right? Whether that's grade 7, straight up to upper 6. That first day that you put on that purple tie, that purple and white tie, this purple and white tie, that mantra runs through your veins. People talk about purple-blooded all the time. It's something that you have to live by. And so uniform is something that actually brings that respect to your school.
But children, are they even listening to people anymore?
The easy answer is no. But I think that it comes from the fact that if your parent sees you walking out of the house in a tight pants where you can see all the veins in your calf, who are we to really and truly correct them at school? Mm-hmm. So I think that a new style of parenting is in now, where parents don't necessarily always agree with teachers. Because when I was in first form, straight up to now, if my mother here say a teacher beat me, she's going to beat me and then find out. So gone are those days. Right. Now parents are coming to beat down the door of the dean and say, Mrs. what go on, understand? And so I think that the gentle parenting or this new age parenting style, it's not helping the schools at all. And to really add on to Kevon's point in terms of the uniform regulations, to go to a school like KC, Camperdown, JC, Calabar, even the best girls' schools, Immaculate, Hillel, all of the schools, you have to pass for those schools. At least that is what I'm told. And so...
Well, it's true.
Yeah. So
in most cases.
Passing for those schools means that you met a standard and you wanted to go to that school.
Right.
And so making that choice for your next 5 years is important. Mm-hmm. And I think that you should be willing to do anything that they're asking of you, especially something as simple as wearing a uniform correctly. And so it's something that has puzzled me, especially since becoming head boy recently, well, deputy head boy recently. I don't really see the need for the constant banter, and because if you want to come to this institution, and it's the same thing that in the working world that I've experienced, if you want to work somewhere, you'll have to comply with their rules and regulations. And so I think that it's just something where they need to understand that, listen, you want to come to KC, this is what we do at KC.
And the school life is preparing you for the work life.
It is. It is. I currently do the BMed course at KC, which is basically architecture and engineering. It's building, mechanical, and engineering drawings. So it's really teaching me the structural and the aesthetic side of doing designs. And so when my teacher gives me a deadline for next week, even if he knows that I can't meet it, I'll have to move hell and high water trying to move it, whether that means coming to training late, whether that means sacrificing a bit of sleep. And it's the same way in the working world. My father's a professional architect, so I have 4 years experience as an architect's apprentice. When he gives me something to do and he says that it needs to be done by tomorrow, it has to be done by tomorrow, or else we have angry clients who are paying us to do work. And so school, for me, it has definitely prepared me for the working world.
Kevon, you're preparing yourself to become deputy head boy, that's correct, at Camperdown. What are your plans to address some of the issues that the children or the students might be facing in the school? What do you want to do?
So my aim is to set by example. As a cadet, that's our main objective.
Oh, you're a cadet?
Yes.
Okay, sir.
So our objective is to set by example, right? The way how we carry ourselves will show to the other students that if we're not wearing a tight pants, we're a dunce bag or so forth, we still can achieve a whole lot in the school system. The school institution is to build you. There is a lot of things that are available to you that you can use and develop yourself and so forth. So, with all of that being said, it's just to lead out, go around, help out, correct students. If they don't comply, we'll make a report to the dean or somebody of staff or so forth.
Earlier, Antoine and Ethan, they spoke about not necessarily exercising punishment to the students, but to initiate conversations. What do you think about that concept? Do you think that is something that could be applied within Camperdown?
Yes, I do. It starts from the home, as he said. So, if the parents aren't setting a prime example, them coming to school, we can't
fight teacher.
We cannot do any better. So it really have to deal with the parents. So when we speak to the parents, and if the parents don't comply, there is not much to do than just say, hey, find another institution where you can do all of this, and if you don't want to learn, that's just it.
One thing that I would add to Kevon's point, when you really and truly, well, something that Mr. Myrie says, our principal, the leading argument against tight pants, haircuts, shoes is that it doesn't affect your education. But when you look at the students who are performing well, that is the students who are in the top 5% of academics in your school, you don't see any tight pants, you don't see the wrong shoes, you don't see the wrong haircut. And so that's the argument that I would present. The students have trademarked being dunce, right? Being slower in classes. And so when you look at the type of student that tight pants, the type of student that is fighting for tight pants, the type of student that is fighting for haircuts, they'll never get it. Simply because they're not putting themselves in a position where a principal can go back and say, you know what? I actually think that this might be something worth considering.
But we need intervention early intervention.
Exactly. That can be given by the guidance counselor, that can even be given by your churches. Intervention is something that, back home we have a saying that there's no time like now to squash things, right? Waiting for tomorrow is not always the best option. And so I think that even some parents can see the issues or sense the issues that their children are going through. And it's not necessarily always denial, but sometimes it's just, he'll grow out of it, right? And so it's not necessarily always growing out of it. Sometimes it requires just one conversation.
One of the simple things that parents can even start doing, Kevin, is to start telling their children, I love you. Give them that level of assurance and start with the hugs. You agree?
Yes, I do agree. Once a little reassurance comes in the picture, their child wouldn't feel pressured into finding their identity.
And trying to get their attention.
Yes.
Do all sorts of things to get their attention in school.
It's a very warm phrase.
Wow. Thank you so very much, Antoine. Yes, thank you very much, Kevin, for sharing with us on the Alrick Show. And I wish you all the best. Mr. Kevin at Camperdown, helping the children, to get the positive mindset. And for you, Antoine, I hope you help the children to win.
Champs.
So it's one, and champs but to win in their mindset as well. Thank you so very much. I want to thank you so very much for sharing with us today on the Alrick Show. And I do appreciate the presence of Ethan, Kevin, and Antoine, Camperdown School and Kingston College. I'm Alrick Mackenzie. Thank you for joining us.